as we get ready to begin, I would just like to invite you to listen to the stories shared by the Wolves and the Schlesingers. I'm sure that everybody has questions that they like to share, but sometimes it's nice to just listen and hold those questions until a little bit later in our presentation today, so that you can actually spend the time hearing what everybody has to say and not always focus on those questions that you want to ask. We will try to get to everybody's questions. My coworker, Josh Sussman, is here for that purpose. He'll be managing the questions coming into the Q&A. Please do not put anything in the chat, only into the Q&A. And I have 7:01 here in Israel. And although some people are still logging in, I very much appreciate that everybody logged in on time, and the Wolves are here and the Schlesingers are here. Again, my name is Miriam Naiman. I work in the Nefesh B'Nefesh Answers and Advocacy Department at Nefesh B'Nefesh, and I'm very happy to share the next 45 minutes or so with you, hearing the story of the Wolves and the Schlesinger families, who both recently made Aliyah over the past few years. David Schlesinger, would you like to begin?
Sure. Hi, everybody. What I'd like to share first and foremost is that our Aliyah is a long delayed story. We've been wanting to make Aliyah since we were married. At the time, we didn't think we had the financial ability to do it. Then we started having kids and sort of we let life get in the way. But in the meantime, as our kids grew up, they all started making Aliyah. And over the last several years, we've been spending more and more time in Israel. We actually rented an apartment here in Givat Shmuel and then eventually bought a place all before we made Aliyah. So when we made Aliyah this past December, we already had some things in place, and it was kind of a soft landing for us. It's been a wonderful experience. I will tell you this, that you hear a lot of things about Israeli bureaucracy, but now it's so technologically enabled. Everything went smoothly, even during Corona times. Getting our identity papers, Teudat Zehut, passports, getting our municipality tax set up.
Driver's license.
Driver's licenses was a little bit slow, but you know, the crux of our story, right? I'm getting a nod of agreement over there. But the crux of our story is we're now here. We're thrilled to be here. And one of the big advantages for us to be here is we've reconnected with some old friends that we used to know back in our old Washington days, who've also made Aliyah. Not all of them have had all their kids come over like we do. We have two families with 4 kids each that were among our best friends 100 years ago in Washington, D.C. One of them has 3 kids here and 1 back in the States. And one of them has 1 kid here and 3 back in the States. And the 1 kid here actually went back to the States to find a little bit of work because of Corona. But we've got a nice expanded community of old friends, new friends, and also our kids' friends who are kind of like our friends. So that's the crux of our story. Did you want to add anything to that?
I think that's it in a nutshell. We're looking for friends our age. Anglo's our age in the Givat Shmuel area. It's more populated by young couples and young singles who either went to Bar Ilan and stayed afterward, or who moved because they had other friends here. But we just felt that this would be the best place for us to land, since we're still doing a little back and forth to Memphis. I have an 86-year-old mother there. And so since we're not here full time, we want to be as close to our kids to where they are. And 2 of our kids live here and 2 live elsewhere. The 2 who have grandchildren live here. So right now they're the most important ones.
Yeah, and if you hear any screaming from the other room, that's one of them. I think he's still here. So.
All right, Wolves, we would love to hear your story. Who wants to begin?
So we also had this always on our agenda at some point, and the opportunity presented itself. And it presented itself. Paulette worked for the UN for 20 years, and they decided that they were going to reorganize, and they said that they no longer needed her services. So as a result, they were wrong, of course, but as a result, we said, okay, let's take advantage and let's move here. At the time, I was working for AIG, and I worked remotely here for a year, right? We live in Netanya, which is a beach community about 30 miles north of Tel Aviv. And it is a wonderful place to be. We made Aliyah about 5 years ago, almost 5 years. And every day is just a bracha, right? It is a small, manageable, walkable, quaint, beautiful community. There is a large Anglo community, both in North Netanya, where we live, and in South Netanya, which is called Ir Yamim, and Kiryat HaSharon is also a very large Anglo community. We are very diverse in terms of people who live here, and it has a beach vibe to it, which means that it is very chill and people just get along. Our experience has been just wonderful. We had just finished, we have a son who's remained in New York, and we have a daughter who made Aliyah before us, and we have a daughter, son-in-law, and two twins who came after us, right? So we're kind of a mixed bag in terms of family and where they are. And really, every day has been just a joy to be here.
That's lovely. Paulette, what would you like to add?
Sure, I'll add, so we bought the apartment in 2006, always with the intention of making Aliyah, even though we didn't actually get here till 2016. Our area has a little bit of a reputation of being older people, but it's in the process of turning over. So there are a lot more people who are moving in who are our age, which is great. Some work, some don't. I work as a consultant. I do organizational change management, but for many, many years when I was working and raising a family, I didn't have an opportunity to volunteer. And now that I have more free time, so we started a Women's Rosh Chodesh, a monthly Rosh Chodesh program. We're in our third year. I'm also co-chair of AACI, which is the Association of Americans and Canadians in Israel. And we are super busy. There are lectures, there are activities, there are exercise classes. I mean, it's an amazing organization. And just new people joining and coming to Netanya every day. We also started a Bet Midrash for women that wasn't there before. We have a group of women who every day either walk or run, either sometimes on the beach, sometimes on the Tayelet. So, I know there are people who are worried about, I'm going to retire, I'm going to be bored. I am not one of these ladies who does lunch. I don't play Mahjong. I don't play, canasta, whatever. Those activities exist, I'm sure, and there are people who do them, but we are just like super busy with, all the stuff that we're doing, and it's great. And I was worried about finding a chevra. I left behind all my friends. We made Aliyah from Queens, and we've been in the same area for 27 years. So when I first came here, I was really worried. But we have our pod now, as we call it during Corona times, of groups that we do Purim with and we do Shabbos with, and it's just incredible. I forgot, I'm also on the board of Young Israel. And I'm sure if I take a few minutes, I can think of other things that we've been involved with, but it's really, the days go by. We just get up in the morning, we don't know where it goes, and turn around and, you're ready to go to sleep. It's crazy.
Paulette, for a lot of people, and as much as they want to move to Israel and very positive about it, still once you get here with all of the ratzon, with all the desire in the world to do all of those things that you're now doing, there's like a gap, and not everybody knows how to get from step A to step B to make those friends, to sort of reconnect and reestablish that concept of personal community. Can you share just how that was for you?
Sure.
How did you come upon some of those things?
Well, first of all, shul. If you go to shul, I mean, it's always easier for the men because they meet obviously right away when they go in the mornings. But for women also, the shuls in this area where we are super social. So like the first few months we were here, like from the first week we moved in, we got invited for Shabbat meals constantly. So we did, so we were meeting everybody all the time. So the shul was an important place to meet. As I mentioned, AACI is a very social place, and they have tons of activities going on, and you can meet people. And also, every city, and I'm sure Givat Shmuel has it as well, we have like the Secret Netanya and Netanya News, and it's for Anglos to ask literally any question. So people write, where do I find a pharmacist who carries this, or where do I find this kind of food, or who can recommend a plumber? And it's really, really useful at the beginning when you're just feeling your way, to be able to have that source that you can go on and ask literally any question and you can get answers. So it's very helpful.
So if I
Yeah.
can just say that as you have questions, find the city that you're interested in terms of secret whatever, and ask your questions there. And you will find people who have gone through experiences that you may go through, and they may be able to answer questions that you may have regarding things that you're interested in. Can you find groups that you have in the US in terms of interests, et cetera?
So I would add, we have a similar experience in Givat Shmuel. There's a Facebook group. As Linda mentioned, most of the Anglos here are kids' age, their generation. We've become friendly with a lot of them, but a lot of them have been around here for a good number of years. They know where to find everything, where to get everything, and how to get recommendations for things that we need in the community. There are also a couple of Facebook groups, including the Nefesh group, and another group called Living Financially Smarter in Israel, that is an Anglo community throughout all of Israel. So if you have questions that are not necessarily localized, they're great resources as well.
And I'll add that we've met and we've heard about people whose parents, kids who live in Givat Shmuel, whose parents are either here for sabbatical or visiting for an extended or short period of time, or moving here, and just networking with other people and that we know around the country. People have told us, oh, I know somebody who's moving to Givat Shmuel. So that's how we've met some people here too.
It can feel like a stumbling block a little bit once you get here, to say like, okay, now how to connect with people, and how can I make friends and reestablish myself. And David and Linda, you said actually that Givat Shmuel is a bit more of a younger community, whereas Netanya has that diversity of, families and older. But it sounds like, David and Linda, that you decided to settle on Givat Shmuel simply because your kids were there, if I got that right. And you're using it sort of as a springboard to see really where you might settle. So somebody asked in the Q&A, if you could just share a little bit how a person chooses a community. I always say myself that there's a Jewish community everywhere in Israel. So while it's physically a small country, there's a lot of places to live. So I would love to hear from both of you how you came to choose the communities that you have settled in. I realize that you're in Givat Shmuel, but where might you look onwards to?
Right. So for us, we did have this challenge about, we didn't think we knew enough about communities to be able to make a decision to go buy a house and plant ourselves in a given community. We did hire some real estate agents to take us around, look at houses in a bunch of communities. And we decided, kind of as an interim thing, when I say interim, I'm thinking 5 to 7 years, that we would just locate ourselves near where our kids are. So that was kind of an easy decision for us. And as we spend more and more time here, we will start exploring other communities and really get to know them. Now we have the luxury of time to figure out where we might have some friends, where we might have some contacts. Just as an example, a week ago, we spent Shabbat in Sur Hadassah with some old friends of ours from Washington, D.C. Beautiful community, but having a friend in the community gives you the luxury to really explore the place and get to know people. So if you can avoid, my advice would be, if you can avoid rushing into a decision as to where to live permanently, come here, find a place that's comfortable, rent a place.
And they rented in Sor Hadassah before,
Right,
and
right.
they're looking to buy now, but they've been renting in Sor Hadassah for 2 years, but they know they like it and they want to stay there.
Yeah, so no, so we actually rented a place in Givat Shmuel for 2 years before we even bought this place. And we saw that for our family situation, this location would be best for us. But this is a really, really important decision. And the more information you have and the more time you have under your belt, the better off you'll be at making this decision.
Also,
Okay.
we have a list of things that seems to grow in length as time comes and as time goes. And David always teases me about this, but sort of prioritize the things that are most important to you, like Anglos. If that's the most important to you to be in a community that has Anglos. Maybe you want to have a young Israel or a shul that has an English-speaking rabbi or gives or has shiurim in English. If you want to be near a hospital, if you want to be in a scenic area, how important it is for you to be in a community where your kids, if they're not here yet, where they might want to settle, where there would be good schools. There's a whole list of things that you can prioritize according to what you want for yourselves and what your kids may want if you want to prioritize being in a community where they might be able to live too.
I would love to hear now from the Wolves, sort of that opposite experience. They bought 10 years before they moved. And how did you come to choose, right? You said in 2006 you bought in Netanya?
Yeah, so we came at it from two different stories, actually parallel stories. So I'll tell my story and then I'll turn it over to Paulette. Is my synagogue during the Second Intifada had a trip to Israel in order to visit the Shtachim, to visit Yehuda v'Shamron, and one of the places we came was Netanya. We came here mostly to visit Linyado Hospital, and I fell in love with Netanya. Netanya is on the beach, it is flat, and it doesn't snow, right? So I said, this is a wonderful place to be. I mean, they also have a lot of cafes and you have a local shuk, etc. So I fell in love with it. And I said that if we make Aliyah, when we make Aliyah, this is where I want to be. Okay, so now Paulette.
So mine is a little different. My parents came to Netanya in the 70s. They were survivors of the Shoah, and Netanya was very Hungarian then, and they were Hungarian. And they had wanted to buy a place, but people didn't fly back and forth as often like they do now. So they never did it. So we felt that by buying here and living here, we were kind of completing their dream. Also, I grew up in Muncie, and my rabbi from Muncie, I ran into him in the States once, and he was telling me he lived in Netanya. And we had never even really thought that much about Netanya, because every time we came here, my brother-in-law lives in Efrat. He's been there for 26 years. So we always went to Yerushalayim in that part of the world. And we never even thought of going north. But like once we came here, we just absolutely fell in love with it. And we're just really, really happy with our decision.
Yeah, fair. How was your Hebrew when you first came?
So
Who
I
wants to
spoke.
answer first?
I'll answer. I grew up, I went to yeshiva, so I spoke Hebrew, but not, not like everyday Hebrew, not as good. Ulpan didn't work for me, but what I do is I just use it. I talk, I go, I get on the bus, I go to the shuk, I go, my shomer in my building, whatever it is, and I just speak it as much as I can, and through that I'm getting better. Israelis are really good. They'll help you. As long as you speak quickly. You don't have to be accurate, you just have to talk fast.
And,
have a good accent.
And for me, my Hebrew was actually really good, but people kept saying, are you a professor of Hebrew? Right? I mean, language is really spoken on the street. So once you start speaking on the street and talking to people and going into the shuk and talking in the stores and meeting people, then you really learn a language, right? Because languages really aren't learned in classrooms, they're learned in the street. So to answer your question, my Hebrew is much better now than it was.
good. I'm glad to hear 5 years later. That's excellent. There are some people who can spend 20, 30 years and not be interested in moving ahead. And I think sometimes that leads to a lot of frustration. David and Linda, how was your Hebrew when you made Aliyah?
So I'm the lucky one here because I managed to learn Hebrew when I was a kid. My father was a visiting professor at Bar Ilan. He would come for a half a semester every year. So I would spend 2 or 3 months a year here as a child. So I picked it up, and it's almost as good as a mother tongue for me.
He's fluent.
And what about you, Linda?
I learned a little bit in college. I did kibbutz Ulpan, and since we've been coming back and forth through the years and trying to speak Hebrew to his family, mine has grown. It's gotten better. I would say I'm sort of on an intermediate level. I can get around, but I definitely want to improve it. I'd like to be more advanced. I've been participating in the Ulpan Le'inyan webinars, which have been really good. And at some point I will take advantage of the benefit to join an Ulpan, a regular Ulpan, and improve my Hebrew even more. And I try to navigate things like our healthcare system, the Maccabi app. I try to read things in Hebrew. When I get messages from stores or WhatsApps or whatever, even from his family, I try to force myself to read things in Hebrew and look the words up that I don't know or ask him. So
what about managing your banking and online banking?
Yes, so I do it on the Hebrew website. When we set up our bank account here, they told us there is an English site, but it doesn't have all the functionality in it. So for me, it was an opportunity to learn some terminology that I didn't know, banking terminology,
Yeah, exactly.
Hamarat matach, changing for foreign currency and so forth. So picking up every industry, every area of life has its own set of terms and language. So picking up some things that I didn't even know, even though I've been speaking Hebrew since I was a kid.
Yeah, we also do all our banking online. There's a lot of different services you can do online here, like Maccabi, which is a health service. You make all your appointments online. I no longer will even consider a doctor if I have to call their office to make an appointment. And you can go get your blood test and you see the results the same day or like within the next day. So many of the things that you need to do now, post office, which is, notoriously horrible. You can make an appointment ahead of time. When you went for your passports, right? You made the appointment,
Yeah.
You show up. There's so many things, like David said earlier, technology really, really helps in this country in a way that it didn't even 5 to 10 years ago.
So
Very true.
let me just, Miriam, let me answer the other question, is that we have lots of friends who have made Aliyah, whose Hebrew is virtually non-existent, right? And they do just fine, right?
How do they do just fine?
Pardon?
How, if you could just expand on that a little bit, because
Sure.
The four of you are very lucky that either both of you or one of you in the couple were comfortable to a certain degree upon arrival. But there's some people who are not comfortable. They're very willing and ready to learn, but the bills come and they're overwhelmed and they feel that their independence has been sort of taken from them. And they want to regain that independence quickly. So I would love to hear, David.
Sure. So let me first say that the first thing that you need when you come here is patience, right? And you need to be able to take a deep breath and to learn. I have found that in most places, people are more than willing to spend the time and explain things to you and help you through it. Certainly here in Netanya, there are a number of organizations that will sit down with you with your electric bill and help you figure it out, right? Or sit down with you with any of the government things that you may see. You will also find in the community people who have traveled your path and will also sit down and help you. So one of the things about living in this country is you are not alone, right? I know it sounds cliched, but it is true that it is a family atmosphere. where everybody gets involved in everybody's business. All you have to do is ask the bus driver which stop to get off, and you have engendered a conversation in the entire bus. People who are going to sit and tell you what to do and when, et cetera. And if you find the community, right, certainly the community here in Netanya, and certainly in Yerushalayim, and also in Givat Shmuel, there are large Anglo communities, and you can spend your day from morning till night and not hear Hebrew, right? And to be involved with many activities in place as a way until your Hebrew is, if it ever is, up to snuff. They're also in the big cities. Many of the Israelis, their English is actually pretty good. And I know that some of our friends found that it was intimidating at first, but once you're here, you find that it's not so intimidating, right? And you can certainly pretty much do whatever you want to do here, and to find the help when you get stuck a little.
I think what you just said is very key, in that there's a lot of help, but it's important to remember to ask for it, and then it's there waiting for you. I would love to hear your experiences, if you could share, about the healthcare system, navigating the system, how you became comfortable with the system. Paula, you said about making an appointment online, like, as easy as breathing. It was just like that. How it compares to what you had in the States. Again, bridging the arrival to the point where the four of you seem now, in terms of being very, very comfortable with that system. Whoever would like to begin, I'd love to hear from all of you.
Sure. I would say that, first of all, as we mentioned the technology a couple of times here. So I'm actually a technologist by profession, so I'm very impressed with the technological enablement here in general, and specifically in the healthcare. So the way this worked is, before we made Aliyah, we chose our HMO. There's 4 big HMOs in here. We were told that for where we live, Maccabi is going to be the most convenient. So they already had us set up when we arrived. All we had to do was walk into the nearest Maccabi clinic, which was literally 7 minutes walk from here. They saw us right away. They signed us up. They gave us our Mag Stripe cards. And they set us up with initial consultations with our doctor. I would say Linda's consultation with our doctor was amazing. The doctor spent, I don't know, more than half an hour really trying to get to know everything about us. We've done a lot of things here. We've been corona tested a bunch of times. We've gotten vaccines here. I've had my annual eye exam here. I've had contact lenses filled. I think you had a prescription filled. So
Yeah.
And it works really, really well. You do most of these transactions either online or via messaging. Everything gets downloaded to your app, so all the information is there. You can walk into any pharmacy, they have a record of you. And then I would say also the filling prescriptions is relatively cheap compared to what we're used to. The contact lenses were cheap. The eye doctor visit was all of 29 shekels. And also, by the way, they mentioned there's no limitations on the number of times a year you can come in for a check. So while our initial plan was to keep our primary healthcare managed out of the United States and use the healthcare here for when needs arise, I'm actually already making a transition, because I feel like the service we've been getting has really been great, and the expenses have been very low.
And I would add that it's like moving anywhere. It takes a while till you find the right doctor, till you find the right cardiologist, till you find the right, family doctor, and once you do, then you're fine. Like, you have your network of doctors. But also, I would say that in our second year, we undid all the bad decisions we made in our first year. And, the thing is that you're under pressure sometimes. I have to pick an internet provider. I have to pick a phone provider. I have to pick a bank, an accountant, a lawyer, or this or that, whatever it is you have to do. So in our second year, we changed banks, we changed our cell phone provider, I changed my hairstyle. I mean, that's just part of, because you're going to pick something when you come, and then you'll see if it works for you. But it's not like you're making the decision and then you're signing a contract for 50 years. You have the flexibility. Although I should tell you that the way it works with the healthcare is that if you pick a provider, you can't change. What is it? At 3 months, you have to not see them for 3 months before you can change to a different one. So you should be aware of that.
So, and I just want to say, I am not a doctor person, right? So I am not proactive. I can go, unless there's an emergency, I don't deal with my doctors. However, I get SMSs that says it's time for your cholesterol tests. So I show up and I get my test. We got emails saying that we're registering you to get your corona vaccine. I get messages from all of my doctors that I have that tells me it is time for me to see them, right? So it is great that they take care of it. And the other thing is that since it is a centralized database, every time I see a doctor or if I see a specialist, I'm not filling out the form with the same information that I filled out 47 times before, because everything's in the database. Every doctor who sees me has access to all of my information so that they can sit down and start the conversation, 2 or 3 levels up, which for somebody like me is like, great.
I would, if I may, just like to make a comment about data and data privacy, because as David was saying, all this information about you, every health-related activity that you do, whether it's an appointment, fill a prescription, it's all available to you in your HMO's app. And some of the information is also shared with the Ministry of Health. Now, it's supposed to be anonymized so that the Ministry of Health isn't tracking everything about you. But the information is there. But I'll tell you an instance of where that was hugely helpful. Going through the vaccines, Linda and I had a very easy time because of our age getting vaccinated very early in the process, very smooth process. Our kids who were obviously younger, wanted to get the vaccines, and there was an opportunity one night to get vaccinated at a medical center where they had some extra vaccines left over for the day. So they went there, and it wasn't under their HMO. And then they were told, well, they have to go to their HMO for their second vaccine. And they were worried, how is the HMO going to know that they've already had their first vaccine? Well, the HMO that did their vaccine passes the information up to the Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health says, okay, they're at this HMO, and it was on record. So data privacy concerns aside, I don't think anybody's invading the health data, but the data sharing and the technology makes things like this very, very easy to manage. And it also minimizes the chances for errors in your healthcare, because anybody that sees you has automatic access to your health history.
I think what you said is the most fantastic thing that anybody could hear tonight. And I'm just going to repeat it, in that you said how your second year was spent undoing the mistakes of the first year. And I think the 5 of us, having made Aliyah at some point, I made Aliyah almost 25 years ago, and yet you're immigrating to a new country, and you can only do the best that you can do. And the fact that you had to redo A, B, C, and D, as you said, I think is so important for people to hear. That once you move, it's not like your decisions are set in stone, but rather you are here, and now you can experience those decisions that you made. A lot of people have asked how you have sort of balanced between your banking and your credit cards and even American insurance after your Aliyah, if the 4 of you would be willing to share that experience. Did you keep your American credit cards, your foreign license, sort of how you balanced your life from there to here, and perhaps continue with visits back to North America, and how that works?
So for us, we are on a program for the foreseeable future where we're going to go back and forth. Linda mentioned earlier, she has an elderly mother in Memphis, and I still have my job, which is with Hilton Hotel Companies, a worldwide company. So we're keeping all of our bank accounts in the States, all of our investment accounts for the time being, our house, our credit cards, manage it all online. Likewise, we have a bank account here, credit card here, and manage that online as well. We have a couple of different ways of transferring money, standing orders with my bank and so forth. So when you, in our situation, we're really kind of almost trying to live in two places at once.
That doesn't necessarily have to be unusual. People either for just those exact reasons, or they have kids back, or whatever it is. And it is important to remember that just because you move here doesn't mean that you have to sever all ties with those aspects of your previous life. And what about you guys, David and Paulette?
So we got rid of our house, so we just have the one residence here in Israel. But we did keep our credit cards and bank accounts because we do go back and forth. I mean, we do go to visit, we do go see our kids or our relatives. I'm hopefully going back for a wedding in October. The date has changed 3 times already. I also kept my insurance in the States only because as a retiree from the UN, it was highly subsidized, so it was worth it for me. And that way, when we travel, we don't have to get health insurance when we go. And if I'm there, I'm also covered. So, or but yeah, there's nothing that says you have to give it up. There's no reason why you can't keep it. We still pay taxes in the States too, because as citizens, since we're not giving up our passports, we still have to file taxes every year.
Right. I forgot to mention about the health insurance. Obviously, since I've kept my US job, I have my insurance through my employer.
Right, and yet here in Israel, though, when you go to the Kupat Cholim, when you go to your healthcare, you give your Israeli healthcare provider card. And that's
right.
Something that people sometimes, even if they're keeping their foreign insurance or they have a worldwide coverage through a retirement plan, that being part of the Israeli healthcare system here is obligatory. Everyone is part of the healthcare system. What else would you guys like to share?
There was a message that came up that I wanted to answer verbally. It was somebody asked me what else I like about Givat Shmuel other than just our kids being here. So I'm going to take an opportunity to give a pitch, put in a little pitch for Givat Shmuel. It is, first of all, it's a very convenient location. It's near Tel Aviv, it's near Petah Tikva, it's near Ramat Gan. Near the airport, about 20-minute drive from the airport, 20-minute drive from the beach. Givat Shmuel itself is a small city. It feels more like a little community. It's nestled inside a bigger city, but itself is not too many high rises. There's a nice little shopping mall here. Everything we need is really within walking distance. The mall, restaurants, shopping, greengrocer, whatever it is, everything is close by. As a religious person, I think Givat Shmuel it's very comfortable. It's about 60% modern Orthodox, maybe 40%, let's say non-affiliated. So Shabbat, you can walk on the street. There'll be an occasional car coming through, but not full of traffic. All the stores are closed.
It's also a wealthy city. So there's a lot of services that are provided, free concerts in a big park that's near us. What else?
Yeah, so there's a lot of culture here, and obviously we've got Bar Ilan University nearby. A lot of people here are connected to that. So there's plenty of entertainment, plenty of places to eat, plenty of parks to take the kids, grandkids to.
Oh yeah, a lot of parks.
And it's just easy to get around. It's a very relaxed city. I'll share with you one little snippet. I found my go-to shul a couple of years ago. Go there on Shabbat morning, and my fellow who's been doing legal work for me says, "Hey, the mayor's here today, so let me introduce you to the mayor of Givat Shmuel. It's also a Dati guy." So I'm sitting there talking. I said, "Wow, what an honor it is to meet the mayor." He goes, "Just call me Yossi." It's a very friendly place, and it's not intense like Tel Aviv.
A lot of questions coming in about money management, how you transfer your money, how you manage that process.
Sure. We have two ways of doing it. One is my bank in the US fill out whatever necessary forms are to have a standing order with a certain limit on the amount that I can transfer. So they've got that information plus my Israeli bank information. So it's just a matter of emailing my banker and asking for a transfer. I don't know what the policy is on these webinars about pitching a particular company or organization, but no, okay. So, but there are people that can help you transfer money here as well.
There are, so, right. So you could say how we have either money changers or transfer companies, some excellent transfer companies. Paulette, were you going to add something?
Yeah, so I just I do wires. You know, if I need money, I can transfer from the States, and I get wires. My pension comes directly into my Israeli account. It comes in as dollars, and then I just switch it over to shekel as I need it. And it's very easy, very straightforward. Somebody was asking about the credit cards. Our son is still in the States, so we're able to keep our credit cards because we use his address as our billing address. So I don't know if we didn't have somebody, I don't know if that would be an issue for us or not, but since we do, it's not it's not a problem right now. And somebody was asking about the taxes. There is an arrangement between Israel and the US, so you don't end up paying double. Like I think we file every year the Israeli taxes first, and then the person who deals with the American taxes gets a copy of what we paid in Israeli taxes, and then they figure out the difference. So you're not paying double, if you're concerned about that.
And there's also, as you can imagine, a whole industry of accountants who are fluent in both Israeli and American taxes.
Right. There's quite a few of those professionals here in Israel, and very, very helpful. We need to begin to wrap it up. What parting words would you like to share with our listeners today?
I would say that for us, go ahead, David.
So I would just repeat the Nike commercial. Right? Do it. Right? I know that there are lots and lots and lots of reasons and concerns that kind of create barriers in your thinking process. But once you're here, things just make sense, right? And I was saying earlier that we were talking to this couple who had made Aliyah probably about 8 months ago from LA, and they were kind of locked in their apartment. So we just met them this past weekend, and they were saying that every day they're here, they think of it as they look at it as a bracha. And I told them, I said, we say that same thing every day, and we've been here 6 years. And we have friends here who have made Aliyah 25 years ago, and they say it, right? So what I would do is encourage you to kind of take the leap of faith and come home.
Yeah, and I would just add that, it's one of the best decisions we ever made. We are so incredibly happy here. And even after almost 5 years, there are days when I turn to David and I'm like, can you believe we're here? Can you believe we actually made Aliyah? Like, we talked about it for so many years, but we actually did it. So yeah, it's great. And yeah, we do miss our son who's still in the States, and it is hard, but the Kadosh Baruch Hu will bring him here if he wants him to be here. And that's, there's no other way to look at it. You have to, at some point in your life, you raise a family, you do for everybody, and then you have to say, when's it our turn? When's it our turn? And that was our question. When's it our turn? And, so we made it our turn.
And just one other thing is that we wanted to come here so that we could live here, right? Because there comes a point where, in terms of mobility and what you can do and where you can go, et cetera. And we wanted to be young enough that we could take full advantage of our life here.
I agree with that.
I'd just like to share a quick story. We were in the bank today with our kids and our in-laws. We were signing some documents. Obviously, they could tell we were Americans. And so the bank just why did you come here? It's like some Israelis couldn't even understand. And I said, look, the number one reason we came here, this is my personal favorite. This is a country that you can feel Jewish. It's not necessarily a religious thing. Religious or secular, this country operates according to a Jewish rhythm. On Friday, you know Shabbat is coming. Now we all know Pesach is coming. I don't have to explain to people that I'm going to be offline for a couple of days and won't answer the phone and won't get to my email. Everybody's shopping for Pesach now. Everybody's getting ready for a holiday. Yeah, the roads and the beaches will be crowded during Pesach, but everybody is following this Jewish rhythm. It makes me feel very, very much at home. I'm not swimming against the current. I'm in the current.
So I'm sorry, it's just exactly what David said. I got my car washed today and I pulled into the car wash and they said, do you want a regular one or do you want the Pesach special?
I'll also just add, and I know this isn't an option for a lot of people, but personally, it made it easier for me. If you're not ready to take that huge leap of faith, the fact that we've been able to come here and live here and rent for a couple of years, going back and forth, spending 6 to 8 weeks at a time. Our friends who we spoke about before who live in Sor Hadassah came here for 9 months, a couple of years before they made Aliyah. It can make the transition a little bit easier if you're uneasy about it, getting used to life here, seeing what things are like. And if it's an option for you to work remotely, that's a possibility. Or if one of you is ready to go and one of you is not, that could be somewhat of a compromise.
Excellent, excellent. I really enjoyed hearing your stories today. And I would like to thank the Wolfs and the Schlesingers and all of our listeners today for joining us. And we look forward to being in touch with you. Wishing you all a wonderful day and a wonderful Passover. All the best.
Chag Sameach. Bye, Miriam.
Bye-bye.